Hi everyone, this is Drew from Animal Adventures. I am one of the zookeepers here. I'm going to be doing your show today. So for those of you that don't know, Animal Adventures is a animal rescue zoo out of Massachusetts. We're found in Bolton, and we have tons of animals here, over 300 animals, and they're almost all rescued. A lot of them were people's pets prior to coming here, but some of them were from other zoos where they were orphaned as babies, or rescued from the fur trade or from labs. There's a whole variety of reasons why our animals do come here. And if you ever want to come visit us, we could definitely give you lots of those cool background stories for each of the animals that we do have. We are going to be meeting a lot of animals today. So the ones we're focusing on today are from Australia. Australia has a wide variety of animals that are kind of unique just to Australia. It's pretty interesting how they have many animals that are not found in other parts of the world, mostly because they are separated and spread off to their own continent, rather than many of the other animals that might be overlapping between continents and countries. So we're going to be talking about a bunch of the different ones that we have here from Australia. All right, and a huge big thank you to the Killingly Library for having us today, and for the next few shows that we will be filming for you guys as well. We love doing these library shows, and for anyone that would like to visit us sometime, we are open to the public. So whenever you feel safe to come on by, we would love to have you. And again, we're in Bolton, Mass, so right off of 495. It's pretty easy to get to once you get on to 495. All right, so why don't we start with our first animal today, and we'll actually start with a scaly one. So give me 1 second to go grab him. Alright, so this guy here, they're one of my favorite animals. This one is a bearded dragon. So bearded dragons are extremely popular pets. They are found pretty much every pet store sells them. They're really great beginner reptiles. So if you are looking for a pet lizard, I highly recommend considering a bearded dragon because they are very, very chill. They don't like to do too much. They're very lazy, and they're a lot of fun to just kind of watch. It's almost therapeutic to just watch them do their thing, because they're going to spend a lot of time just hanging out in one spot. But when they do get active, they'll climb on little branches. Maybe they'll dig in the sand in their enclosure. So they are an animal that is very easy. They're going to be great. And they love to climb too. So if you see here, when I put this guy on my shirt, he clings right on, and he'll go straight up to your shoulder, or usually right on your chest, where that's going to be nice and comfortable for him. You do want to make sure you always have a hand below him in case he maybe has a poor grip and misses where he wants to reach. But usually they're just going to cling right on just like Velcro. Let me bring him back close again so we can talk some more about him. If you look at the side of his head, he has those holes there. So those holes are his ears. So lizards do have ears on their heads. It's one of the key ways to tell them apart from a snake, other than also just the lack of legs. But there are some lizards, such as the European glass lizard, that are completely legless. So it's tough to tell those guys apart from a snake. But one thing you will notice is that they do have ears, and snakes do not. So if you're ever trying to figure out, is this a snake or is this a lizard? Something to look for are those ears. These guys also do have eyelids as well, so they can blink their eyes just like we can. But some lizards don't have eyelids, like the crested gecko. So that can be a little tricky when you're trying to tell a lizard and a snake apart if you just rely on those eyelids. Bearded dragons get their name because this area here is known as their beard. So if they feel threatened or if they're super excited, say it's mating season, they will puff out their beard and it turns black. So what they're going to do is puff it up. The scales beneath those white scales that we can see, you can see a little bit of the darkness right on the side there. So you can see it's already showing a little bit, but they're going to puff up so much that only those black ones will be exposed for the most part. And you're going to see a nice big dark beard, and then they're going to bob their head. So it's similar to being at a rock concert. They're going to keep bobbing their head to look bigger and more intimidating than whatever else they might be nearby. Or if it is the mating season, like I said, they're going to do that and it's going to make them look like the biggest, toughest lizard that's in the area, and then they might want to mate with each other. So it's pretty cool. If you guys have ever heard of a blue-tongued skink, they are another type of lizard, and I am going to show you guys a blue-tongued skink after this one. and they do not get along with bearded dragons too well. So what they'll do in the wild is the blue-tongued skink will show off its blue tongue over and over. And once I have him out, I'll explain why they do have a blue tongue. And the bearded dragon will puff out their beard and bob their head over and over. And that's about it. So it's pretty much a very useless fight. And they're going to do that until one of them just gets bored and walks away. So it's something that's not very scary, but it is, for them, it does the job, gets the job done. Right, so if we look at the side of this guy, you're going to notice all of these spines here. So those spines are very, very soft. They look like they would be sharp, similar to almost like a cactus, but they are very, very soft. They're almost like rubber. And what those are used for is actually two things. One, it makes them look intimidating. Just like for us, if we saw those spikes, we'd be like, uh-oh, that guy's probably sharp. I don't think I want to pick him up. Just like a porcupine or a hedgehog. But the spines are actually not soft or sharp at all. They're very, very soft. So the main purpose for them is to help with water collection. So as it rains in the desert, it doesn't happen often. So they want to make sure they get as much water as they can. Water droplets will collect all on their back and between those spines. And when they lean forward, they'll roll between the spines and kind of go along that groove and go straight to the head. And then they can drink them that way. So it's going to be a great little trick or a great little mechanism for them to collect more water, since they're not going to have much water in the desert or the outback, which is where they're found in Australia. All right, bearded dragons are omnivores, meaning that they eat plants and animals. We provide them insects every single day. They love cockroaches, crickets, superworms, mealworms, kind of not too picky. Any of those small insects that you can typically find as feeders for most reptiles, they're going to love them. And you want to put a bit of calcium powder on them as well. Many reptiles don't get enough calcium from their diet, so they need a bit extra provided. And then they're also going to eat a nice big salad every day too. So we're going to give them a good sized salad, lots of shredded fruits and veggies. They love apple, zucchini, squash, even carrots if you shred it up for them, as well as a bunch of greens. So we're going to give them kale, different types of lettuce, dandelion greens, anything like that's going to be some of their favorites. You can see now he's getting pretty sleepy. He's closing that eye, getting much more relaxed. He's just ready to hang out, take a nap on me. Like I mentioned, they are very, very lazy animals. All right, so I'm going to stick this guy back and we could check out a blue-tongued skink next. All right, so here is a blue-tongued skink. This is Outback Jack, also from the Outback, as his funny nickname implies. And they are found right near those bearded dragons. And like I said, they really do not get along. With the blue-tongued skink, you can see he has a very interesting ear on the side of his head. So it has those little grooves. It almost looks like they would be gills. But what those are used for is to help keep sand out of the ear cavity. So that's going to be really helpful in that sandy desert environment. And he almost has a more snake-like appearance. He's very glossy, very, very smooth. His texture is most comparable to, I would say, like corn on the cob. So it's very, very smooth, but kind of bumpy and ridged at the same time. And he has those stubby little T-Rex arms and legs. So he's not going to be the fastest runner, but what he's great at, being as glossy and smooth as he is just shimmying and sliding along the sand. So he's going to make some great distance just by kind of gliding his way around as he goes in the desert. Let's see if I can get you to get him to show off his blue tongue. Sometimes if you pet him under that chin. Not going to show it off right now. How about on the top of the head? Let's see. Looks like it might come out. Let's see here. Not right now. Oh, there we go. So there is his blue tongue. So blue-tongued skinks get their name because of that blue tongue. And for most animals, if they see the color blue in the wild, say they see a blue animal or they see a blue plant, they're going to avoid it at all costs because they have learned that that is typically a poisonous thing. They do not want to eat it because they would probably get sick. And the biggest difference between poison and venom, just a refresher for everyone, is that poison is only going to be dangerous to you if you ingest it. So if you eat it, or even some if you touch it, while venom has to be injected into you. So a venomous snake has to bite you. A poisonous frog, you have to bite them. So these guys are going to have that blue tongue to pretend to be poisonous, even though they are harmless. These guys are almost as harmless as that bearded dragon. They are just also very lazy, very, very chill. You can see he's barely moving at all. He's not even squirming. But they're still going to show off that tongue to look more intimidating because most animals are going to react negatively to that blue color. But yeah, these guys here, they're not that scary at all. And you can find them in a variety of colors. This guy here is this lighter, almost like a tan blondish color to him, with some browns. We have another one who's very, very dark brown with some like whiter stripes on his back. So you can find a different variety. They're definitely gonna have that those varying colors, especially in the pet trade, because for most reptiles, you can breed kind of any pattern you want depending on the type of reptile. Many snakes, such as like the ball python, you can breed to get any cool pattern you'd like. So even these blue-tongued skinks, you can get them darker, lighter, stripes, no stripes. So it's pretty cool to see that variety that's going to be going on. All right, so let me go stick this guy back, and next we will see, how about we check out something furry next? All right, this one's super cute. So here we go. This one here is Chewbacca, and Chewbacca's a mess right now. Chewbacca's got some shavings on his head, but Chewbacca is a lion head bunny. So lion head bunnies are one that's not actually found in the wild. These guys are specially bred, but he's super sweet and he's an adorable bunny. So he's our great ambassador that we like to use for different shows, such as these Zoom shows. And they get the name lion head bunny because their face is very fluffy, like a big lion's mane. So let me see if I can get some of that out of his face so you can see him a little bit, see his face more clearly anyway. There we go. So lion head bunnies are very popular as pets, like I was saying. They're going to be pretty tame. If you handle them a lot, they'll be very sweet. Not going to be too kicky or bitey like some other bunnies will be, but I love the lion heads. And the reason I have a bunny today is actually kind of interesting. If you go to Australia, you will find lots of bunnies, but they are not native to Australia, meaning that they are invasive animals. And there is a difference between invasive animals and non-native animals. So an invasive animal is one that was brought in either by accident or sometimes even on purpose that is not supposed to be there. It does not do well. It's very destructive to the environment. While a non-native animal maybe was not originally there, but once it was brought in, it was actually beneficial or did not have a negative implication. All right. So bunnies are more negative because they are going to be big grazers. They're going to eat all different plants. They're going to be eating crops. So they're going to be really a big issue for farmers. And Australia has many different predator reptiles, even some birds. But there aren't many mammals in Australia that are going to be going after other mammals. So the rabbits may not have as many threats as they would in another country where, say like the US, we have foxes around here, coyotes, bobcats. All of those animals are going to be going after different bunnies and small furry animals as a food source. But these guys here are not going to have a natural predator necessarily in Australia. All right. It's something fun, a fun little fact about bunnies. It's actually a gross fact, but I'd love to share it anyway because it's pretty entertaining, is that they actually eat their own poop. So bunnies go to the bathroom 2 different times, or 2 different ways. They have 2 types of poop. So the first one comes out liquidy, almost like a pudding, and it's full of nutrients for them. It's very, very healthy. So it's similar to say like a cow chewing on its cud. It's everything that wasn't digested the first time. A cow will cough it up and chew on it that way, while a bunny is going to poop it out, and then they'll eat that soft poop and digest the nutrients after. With the second poop, it's going to be those little pellets, almost like Cocoa Puffs. So I'm sorry for ruining pudding and Cocoa Puffs for you, but they will not eat those little the pellets. Those ones are dry, they're lacking any nutrients, so there's no purpose to eating those. So if you ever go on a hike and you stumble upon some of that slimy poop, that's a good indicator that something really scary must have frightened the bunny and scared it off, because they would never leave that behind unless they were terrified. So it could have just been you. Maybe you got too close right at the right time, but there's a good chance it could have been a bird of prey, a coyote, fox. So if you look around you in your area, you might see a predator animal somewhere nearby. That's more local to our area, but even in Australia, they're still going to do that same behavior of pooping and eating the nutrients from that first type of poop. All right. And let's look at this one's ears. So bunnies have ears located on the top of their head, and they're going to vary in size. Chewbacca here has pretty small ears. Other bunnies will have very, very big ones, such as like hares, which are their very close relative. It depends on the type of rabbit, if their ears are going to be big or small. And they have the ears on the top of the head to be able to search for predators around them. So bunnies are great at evading most predators, but even some predators will be good at sneaking up on them and getting bunnies, since they're such a great and easy meal. Once you do have them, it's going to be filling for a long time, since they tend to be pretty chunky animals with a lot of meat on their bones. All right, and these guys are also herbivores. That means that they only eat plants. So we learned that the first two lizards we saw were both omnivores, eating plants and animals, while bunnies are herbivores, eating only plants. So these guys are going to eat big salads. They'll eat lots of grasses, grains, hay, fruits and veggies that they find. Here we feed ours a pelleted diet. It's a dry pellet, which is basically condensed hay and grasses that they need. And then we also give them different fruits and veggies every now and then. People always think to give their bunnies carrots. That's all right in moderation. We don't want to do it too much, because it can cause diarrhea. All right, so let me put this one back, and we're going to meet a sort of a slimy animal next, okay? All right, this one's pretty cool. This one here is a cane toad. So cane toads are also an invasive animal in Australia. In the wild, cane toads are native to Central and South America. You're going to find them all over rainforest areas and jungle areas. And they were brought to Australia a number of years ago because they were dealing with a pest, an insect pest that was going after the sugarcane crops in Australia. And they could not think of any of their animals that would eat that bug. They were like, what can we do to get rid of this little bug that's causing these huge problems and devastating our crops? So they decided to bring in some cane toads, and they were like, all right, let's see if these guys will eat them. As he just peed on me. Whoops, you okay, buddy? He's jumping everywhere. So this one here is a cane toad who loves to jump too. So the bigger they get, you're gonna notice that they'll be very jumpy. We have some small ones who are pretty chill, but I love showing off how big this guy is. And I don't mind if he peed on me a little bit. That's all right. Keeps it entertaining for you guys, huh? But yeah, where was I? So they decided to bring in the cane toad to Australia to see, oh, maybe these guys will eat that type of insect messing with the sugarcane crops. That was a huge mistake. So they did not really eat many of those insects. What they did instead was just kind of leave them alone, but they ate many of the natural bugs that they did not want them to go after. And they bred like crazy. At some points, there were cane toads everywhere. You can find videos online of cane toads just kind of covering the grounds. You could drive, and when you were in your car, there was nowhere in the road you could go without running over the cane toads because they just covered the entire roads. They covered fields. They were everywhere, all in people's yards, completely destructive. So it's not a good thing that they did by bringing them in. And what's really negative about it, if I get this guy close enough, let's see if my camera will focus. See all those little polka dots near his shoulder? It's that big, almost like a football shoulder pad. Those are poison glands. So these guys are poisonous. It is not a huge concern for people unless you go around licking these toads or trying to take a bite out of them. But if they feel threatened, they will secrete a white poison from those poison glands. Each of those pores will secrete poison. And then if an animal eats it, if it's a much smaller animal than a human, it could be fatal. It could get them very, very sick. So the animals that are native to Australia couldn't even eat these guys. So that was just another reason why they were taken over, because nothing could stop them. Nothing was eating them. Until luckily, the kookaburra, the laughing kookaburra, who we're going to see later on, learned how to eat them. That is a type of bird. They are part of the kingfisher family. And what they did was learn that if they flipped the cane toad onto their back, they could eat the stomach and not get sick. So the belly has no poison, but it's very nutritious and tasty for those kookaburras. So it was amazing once they finally learned to eat these ones. Okay. What else about them? Let's see. Since they were such a problem, the Australian government actually had to figure out plans to help eradicate them. So what they did was create different, kind of like a prize system. So what they would do is grab a single cane toad in each area and put a little microchip in it, something that they could scan. And then they would tell the public, all right, bring in as many cane toads as you can. So the public would go around killing as many cane toads as possible. And they would bring bags and bags full of cane toads to their local police department. And then they would scan each of the cane toads. And if someone brought in the cane toad with the chip, they would get to win a car, or they would win a huge sum of money. So it was a really good way, a good little lottery to kind of help eradicate those numbers, since they got the public involvement. And the public didn't mind because they were so destructive, and they could win a car out of it. So it really worked out well for everyone, except for the cane toads. But they weren't supposed to be there anyway. They were so destructive, it kind of had to be done. All right, so I'm going to put this guy back before he tries jumping again, because he's feeling a little squirmy again. And then we'll take out a snake. Alright, so bear with me for a second as I take out this snake. Whenever we handle a snake here, the first thing we like to do is gently touch them on their head. This is a good way to tell the snake that it's not feeding time. So by doing this, whatever we touch them with, usually we use like a roll of paper towels. I have a regular towel that I'm using today. It doesn't look at all like food, so it really tells the snake, all right, not time to eat. And it gives us a much safer opportunity to pick them up, since our hand smells and looks a lot like prey. So we don't want to just stick our bare hand in there and trick the snake or confuse the snake into thinking that it is feeding time. All right. So this beautiful snake here is a carpet python. Carpet pythons are found only in Australia, and there's a wide variety of carpet pythons. I believe this guy is more of a jungle carpet python, but you can find jungle carpet pythons, coastal carpet pythons, and a few other types as well, just varying depending on where they are actually found throughout Australia, which part of the environment they are in. And this guy's being a little stubborn. I'm trying to get him to anchor onto me. So for snakes, the behavior called anchoring is when they hold on. So they're going to hold on with their body, they're going to wrap around, and it's not to hurt you. If a snake is trying to hurt you, then they'll do what's called constricting. And that is when a snake bites first. Biting will give them a good strong grip of their prey, and then they will wrap around that prey, okay, to constrict it and squeeze it to death. So let me see if I can get him comfy. It looks like he wants to just come over and look at the camera. You can get a good close look at a snake's face. This is probably the closest you'll want to be to a snake's face, right? And you can see his tongue wiggling too. So the wiggling motion is how a snake is going to smell. So snakes smell with their tongue. They have a forked tongue, and they wiggle it around in the air, and it picks up scent. And since it is forked, it's going to let them know if the prey is coming from the left or the right, and then they can maneuver and adjust to best go after that prey. All right. Carpet pythons are very, very strong hunters. What they're going to be able to do is take down prey significantly larger than them. I believe they have the ability to take down the largest prey compared to their head size of almost any snake. And they've been known to even eat wallabies, depending on the type of wallaby. So an agile wallaby is definitely a possibility for a very large carpet python. All right. A cool way to tell apart a python from a boa is based on how they give birth. So a python is going to be an egg layer, meaning oviparous. Ovi's typically related to eggs. And then a boa is going to be a live birth-bearing snake. So they're going to be viviparous. So vivi means living. So they're going to have live birth. Their babies are going to come out fully developed, ready to go. While this guy here, if this one were to lay eggs, would have to have a nest of eggs. And then those are going to incubate externally, so meaning outside of their body. And then they will hatch when they're ready to. So it's a pretty interesting difference between the two of them. These guys also have more pronounced pits on the side of their face. So you're going to notice that there's that groove and those holes on the side of the face. Those are referred to as heat pits. And they're going to use those for two different reasons. Well, it's the main reason is to detect heat, but for two different types of heat. So some have been using theirs to find prey, since they'll notice a warm prey animal walking or running around. But most commonly, those heat pits are to detect environmental heat. So if they need to bask in the sun, they'll be able to find the warmest spot to go lay down and get warm. And that's important because these guys are ectothermic, or cold-blooded, which means that their body temperature changes based on their environment. They're not going to be a constant temperature like humans are. We're endothermic, warm-blooded, so we're always at about 98 degrees. Snakes here, if he's in an 80-degree room, his body will be 80 degrees, and it's changing based on wherever their environment is. So they need to, throughout the day, move around to keep that body temperature kind of fluctuating and regulated. So as they want to get nice and warm, they want to get nice and cool when they get too warm. So they're going to look for the best spots using those heat pits on the side of their head. All right. We never put snakes around our neck here because our neck is the warmest part of our body. And a snake, using that body, kind of those sensors to detect body heat and any other heat, they're going to see our neck as a very cozy place. They're going to wrap around super tight, and then you won't be able to breathe too well. And really, all they're doing, they're being harmless, or what they think is harmless, and they're just going to go there to get all nice and warm. But for us, it can make it very, very difficult to breathe. So it's a lot safer on your arm or wrist to hold a snake, since that's a warm spot as well, but you can still breathe with a snake around your wrist. All right, so it's a lot better to keep them there. Okay, so up next, we're actually going to be walking around the zoo in different areas. I'm going to be taking you guys all around to different locations of Animal Adventures. You'll be seeing some other Australian animals in their enclosures, since many of these other ones are a bit too big and awkward to bring into a room like this. Okay, so again, my name is Drew, and a huge thank you to the Killingley Library for having us today. And let's go check out some of those other animals. All right, so in here we have our two red kangaroos. The one who's showing you her bum right now, that is Naomi. She's our female. And the one looking right at you is Tico, our male. So red kangaroos are some of the most common types you'll see in Australia. They're also very large. So these guys here are a good size animal, but they would be much larger in the wild. One of the reasons for why they are a bit smaller is because they're both spayed and neutered, or fixed, most people will say. So that is a process of just kind of eliminating the ability for them to reproduce. And a lot of times you want to do that with a kangaroo or a wallaby because they can get more aggressive as they age and mature if they're allowed to still get into that reproductive age. So if you allow that to continue, they can be pretty destructive. And we're not trying to breed kangaroos here, so they are very abundant in the wild as well as in captivity too. So Tico's coming right over. But there's a lot of them in captivity, and in our rescue facility here, we don't really have a need for more baby kangaroos. So we just kind of did the process of fixing them. Had they not been spayed and neutered, the male especially would be much larger. He's sniffing you guys right now. He could get up to 6 feet tall as an unneutered male, but now that he's neutered, he's pretty done growing. I'd say he's about probably almost 5 feet tall when he stands all the way up. So he's still a big animal for sure. And if you get a chance to look at his tail, let me just rotate that camera a little bit. You're gonna notice just how muscular his tail is too. So they have a very, very powerful tail, and that's how they're going to be able to move. So a lot of their locomotion's done using their tail and their forearms, and then they're just going to kind of drag with their arms and push off with their tail. You're going to notice that a bit here as he's moving just away from us. Good little demonstration from this guy. And then their rear legs and feet are basically just a landing pad. When they are in a faster hop, when they're doing a large leap, it's going to be a lot more of a combination of that tail and those rear legs. But just their regular walking is going to be predominantly their forearms and their tail. An adult male, if it hadn't been neutered, could do a leap 25 feet. In one single leap. So it's pretty incredible how far they can go. These guys could still do a pretty big jump, but not nearly as much as a full-grown, almost 6 foot tall male. And they get really muscular too. They're going to be jacked when they're all the way that big. So they're going to be a powerful animal. And that's why they also get, when they're aggressive with people or other animals, they can be very, very destructive. because they're just so strong. They're able to really defend themselves as animals. What's interesting about them, though, is that in the wild, they only live about 4 years, 4 to 6 years. They have a pretty short lifespan, and that's for a number of reasons. I'd say the most common is just getting hit by cars. They are so abundant in Australia that they get hit by cars a lot, just like you'll see deer getting hit in the United States. They're almost the equivalent of deer in Australia. They're just that common. Another reason why they don't live as long is because their mouths are actually very sensitive. So if they ever get a wound inside of their mouth, say I accidentally bit they were eating some leaves and there was a thorn mixed in and they cut their mouth open, it almost never heals. It's almost always going to leave a wound that will become fatally infected, and they can die from that. But in captivity, these guys can live over 20 years, so their lifespan really quadruples in captivity, which is incredible. A lot of animals being in captivity, they're not going to have as many threats. They're going to have constant food supply, so they're going to live much longer than they typically would in the wild. Female kangaroos are marsupials, they're both marsupials, but as a marsupial, the female kangaroo does have a pouch, and that's where the babies are going to develop. So what they do is they give birth very prematurely. The baby's actually about the size of a jelly bean when it comes out, and it's going to crawl up into that pouch there, and it's going to have to make its journey into the pouch. So that's a pretty difficult feat. As a little jelly bean that's pink and doesn't have open eyes or anything, it'll crawl into that pouch and latch onto a nipple in there. And they're going to stay in that pouch for a long time while they're really developing and getting much larger. And a baby kangaroo is known as a joey. So in that pouch, they have several different nipples, and each one actually produces different milk. So there will be milk for the newborn baby. There's one will have milk for a slightly older baby, which will also be in the pouch. And then we'll have milk for a much older baby that's hopping alongside the mother. Every now and then we'll reach in to get some more milk. And one of the craziest things about them is that when a kangaroo gets pregnant, if their body's not ready to give birth yet, it will pause the pregnancy inside of them and resume it months later, up to months later. It might not resume or pause it that long, but it could resume it or pause it for months, which is insane, but pretty helpful when there's might be not the best time or the environment might not be right for them to be giving birth at that time. All right, these guys are herbivores. You can see they both decided now is the best time for a snack. They eat a kangaroo diet, which is it's sort of like an oat base with lots of all the nutrients that they need. We also give them a big, just a laundry bin over here, but it's full of hay so that they can pick at that all day long. Hay is very important for their diet, and you want to make sure it's nice and soft. So we get usually the second cut hay, so it's very soft for them, gonna not cause any issues within that mouth, like I was talking about before. What else about these guys? I love kangaroos. They're one of my favorite animals that we have here, but also it's one of my favorite animals in general. I think they're such amazing creatures. And they have those huge ears, so they're really going to be listening very well. They have a strong sense of hearing, and they're going to be paying attention to their environment and all the things going on around them. Let's see. That may mostly be it for the kangaroos, but right next door we actually have a wallaby. So I'm going to take you guys over to see that, because there are some differences between kangaroos and wallabies that I'll be able to discuss. All right. So the wallaby right now is being a little bit lazy. He's just taking, the other guys are having snack time. This guy here is basically more into his nap time. Let's see. So this here is Piglet, and Piglet is a Bennett's wallaby, or a red-throat wallaby, redneck wallaby. So if you go to Australia, they're only going to call it the red-throat or the redneck wallaby. They will very rarely call it the Bennett's wallaby. Most other places around the world will refer to them as Bennett's wallabies because someone just went to Australia, a researcher, saw them, and decided, oh, I'm going to name this after myself, and his last name was Bennett. So that's how it kind of ended up. But the natives and locals in Australia say, we already had a name for that, so they're going to go with the other name for them. And wallabies, as you can tell, are a bit smaller than kangaroos. They do not get nearly as large as their kangaroo cousins would, but they are very closely related. And one of the biggest differences, honestly, is that size. So these guys are going to be much smaller. And this is one of the larger types of wallabies. You can find some like the agile wallaby that is significantly smaller. And it's really going to tell the two apart. The best comparison is almost like a mouse and a rat. So in that scenario, these guys are more like the mice, while kangaroos are more like the rats. So they're just going to be a bit larger. And another difference, they have a bit of a different dental structure as well. And then their fur is a bit different. So they both have very, very soft fur. Kangaroos have up to 50 fur per follicle. So every follicle that's a spot where the fur grows. And kangaroos are going to have very, very dense fur. Let me see, I'm just going to rotate this for you. And we can see if get a better view of Piglet. He has a bag over here to play in. So just something to kind of enrich himself with. We give him different toys every single day. And he's very, very sweet. Yeah, their dental structure will be a little bit different too. Let me get out of the way so you can see him better. And he has practically the same diet as a kangaroo, mostly grasses and grains and different plant matter that they want to eat. There he is. Say hello to you. And they're going to move around the exact same way. So using that tail mostly, as well as their forearms for their regular movement, and then they'll use the tail and the back legs for more of a sprint or a longer distance hop. And he's very sweet. We've had him since he was a baby as well. So almost all of our animals here, a lot of the more exotic ones especially, came to us as young babies that were either possibly orphaned by their mothers or another situation that happened, so they came to live with us. So they've gotten very used to us over time, since most of these guys actually were bottle raised by us. They required a lot of help from us and a lot of care. So he doesn't mind people at all. He kind of loves to be around us. Every morning when we're cleaning, we take him out of his enclosure and he'll just hop around with us and explore, see what's going on. Pretty funny, actually. He does not like the kookaburra. So if you guys saw the kookaburra today, he will sit right in front of it and kind of taunt him, because the kookaburra doesn't like him either. So they'll just go back and forth, and this guy will just be staring at him. The kookaburra will be doing a loud, aggressive laugh at him. So it's pretty entertaining to watch. See how they, he has that idea that, oh, this guy doesn't like me, let me just see what I can do to mess with him. Which is pretty funny, pretty fresh of him, but that's all right. Everyone has their own little personality. And he is in a bit of a smaller enclosure here. So kangaroos and wallabies are actually known to be pretty high stress animals. So they don't like to be in a huge open space unless they have a large mob of family members living with them. So in the wild, they can handle a giant area that they'll kind of maintain, because there's going to be a bunch of them. They're going to have a large mob of anywhere up to over 20 individuals living in it. And that mob will be able to kind of have that group mentality. They're going to move all around, be very, very confident. I know he's sniffing you again. But if you just have a couple like we do, he's very shy anyway. So we've tried him, we almost gave him a bunny as a little friend, and he didn't like the bunny. So he likes to be on his own, but he would be too intimidated in a very large space. So he does great in this smaller space. The kangaroos do have a slightly larger enclosure because we do have 2 of them, but even they are pretty nervous animals, so they don't want to go anywhere too big unless you do have a high number of them. Just like the wallaby, they're very, very similar animals to each other in that sense. And they do, wallabies, just like kangaroos, are going to have that pouch that their babies will grow and develop in. The wallaby that we have here is a male, so he does not have that pouch. All right, so I think that's mostly it for the kangaroos and wallabies today. All right, so our next friend here is Urkel the emu. Urkel is an Australian emu, so they are the 2nd largest bird in the world. The largest is the ostrich. These guys are very similar in appearance, just a little bit on a smaller scale and not nearly as fast as the ostrich, but they can still get up to about 35 miles per hour when they are doing a long distance run. And they can really cover that speed because of these huge feet that they have. If you notice those down below, it's almost like velociraptor feet. They have the 3 very pronounced toes, the middle being the largest. And they will actually use those as a defensive mechanism as well. So if an emu feels threatened, they will kick straight ahead at whatever's bothering them. They'll lunge their entire body forward and slash with their feet. And they can do severe damage. If they were to get you on your stomach, they could cut you right open. So it would not be fun. So you want to definitely stay on the back side of an emu when you're interacting with them. This guy here is super friendly, and I slowly came over to him and got him to sit right with me, or stand right with me. But he's just relaxing now. But if you were near like a wild emu, you do not want to be directly in front of them, because then you'll be in that kicking zone. Looking at this guy's head, you're going to notice he has a bluish tint to his head. That is going to act as a natural sun repellent for him, so that way he does not get burnt by the sun. And that's very important since they do live in the Australian outback in the wild, which is going to be a very, very hot open area with lots of direct sunlight. They actually do great here because we do have, even though we have the cold weather, they have very insulated feathers. It's very dense. The top is almost like a hay-like texture, and then underneath, it's a very soft down feather. All right, now I do have a feather in my pocket I wanted to show off. Since this guy is molting, we're finding feathers all over the place. What's really, really cool about them is that they all start as a single feather, and then they branch off into two. So it's like they're covered in little split ends. And that's how all of the feathers are built. So it's pretty interesting. These guys are mostly herbivores. They're gonna be eating lots of different grains and grasses. They will eat some little bugs and meat if they find it, but they're mostly gonna be eating plant life. So we're gonna give them lots of hay, lots of grains, chicken food, but we also mix in some dog food for a bit of extra protein for them as well. All right, and they are not able to fly. These guys are known for their running ability rather than their flying ability, but they do still have wings. If you look down here, just a teeny tiny little chicken wing. So that's all they got going on. Super small, can't do much with that, but it does give them a little bit of extra movement when they are kind of trying to show off maybe for a mate or trying to look big and tough. They'll puff up and show off those wings a little bit. All right, so that was Urkel, our Australian emu. All right, and this next interesting animal here is a brush-tailed baitang. Baitangs are critically endangered, specifically this brush-tailed baitang, but many of the other baitangs as well. They are a very small marsupial. So again, a marsupial is an animal that has a pouch. So their babies are born incredibly small, and then they have to crawl up into the pouch where they're gonna have most of that development take place, just like a kangaroo and a wallaby. Baitangs here are not found often in the United States, but we do have our two. We have a male and a female who are here as part of more of a breeding program. So they came to us in the hope that they will eventually have babies to help increase the numbers for that genetics going on. So they are often referred to as a kangaroo rat, but that is a completely other type of animal too. So that's more of just a nickname since they do have that almost rodent-like small appearance while also being a marsupial just like a kangaroo. And they have a similar build to a kangaroo too, with the longer back legs that they use for hopping as well as the very long tail, which the tail is also sometimes mistaken similar to a rat tail as well, just a very fluffy rat tail. So that's why you might get a bit confused. They are more on the nocturnal side, so they definitely get more active at nighttime, but they can be active during the day. You can see that this guy is up right now, but he was looking pretty sleepy at the moment. So I'm sure once I get out of here, he'll be going right back to bed. And for their diet, they get a variety of different fruits and vegetables, as well as a mixture of different grains too. So we have a kangaroo pellet, some rodent blocks, which are great for their teeth. Then they love mushrooms, so we spoil them with mushrooms. And then there's some cucumbers, green beans, peppers. So we try to vary it every day, but the things we always want to give them is plenty of hay, as well as that kangaroo diet, and then mushrooms. They love them so much. All right, so this was a brush-tailed baitang. All right, so the next animal we're seeing here is Juki, who is our laughing kookaburra. Laughing kookaburras are members of the kingfisher family, and they are found only in Australia. They are great predators, so they're going to be eating all different small animals. And one of the small animals that they're going to go after a lot is the cane toad. So cane toads are an invasive species in Australia. They are poisonous, and they were brought in to help with eradicating an insect that was being a pest. But the cane toads ended up being a huge problem. They didn't eat the insect as much as they wanted, and they bred like crazy, so they took over. And nothing would eat them due to their poisonous sacs on their back. But the laughing kookaburra learned how to eat them. So what they would do is flip them onto their back and then eat the stomach, and there was no poison in the stomach, so they were okay there. These guys are known for their laugh, which is very, very loud. So if I roll my R's right now, he'll start laughing. So let's see if we can hear him. Alright, so you just heard his laugh right there. The louder they laugh means they're in charge. So he wants to outlaugh you, laugh louder and longer than you can, and then he will be the boss. So this was Juki, our laughing kookaburra. Okay, so that is going to wrap up our first Australia series. Again, my name is Drew from Animal Adventures. We are located in Bolton, Mass, right off of 495, and we're open all year round, every day from 10 to 5. So if you're ever looking for something to do, come on down. We'd love to give you a tour, just show you around the place. And we also do birthday parties and traveling shows. So if you're looking for a fun birthday idea, give us a call, we'll help you out. So a huge thank you to the Killingly Library for having us today, and we hope to see you in the future.